You know what I don't miss at all? That horrendous week right before my period when I feel like crawling out of my skin and my skin is full of zits, mind you. Yes, PMS hits me hard, but now it's easier to manage with Estro Control by Happy Mammoth. Estro Control contains science-backed herbal extracts that help support hormonal health, especially during PMS. The way it does this is super interesting. The ingredients help support the liver where our hormones are processed, and oftentimes PMS symptoms are caused by hormonal fluctuations. Estro Control is also made specifically for women who are premenopausal, a time when, PMS can turn into a beast. I know this firsthand. So for a limited time, you can get 15% off on your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code DATEABLE at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code DATEABLE for 15% off today. Yes, we all know the quality of makeup and skincare products are important, but have you ever thought about how you apply them is even more important for results? Since 2019, Anissa Beauty has been leading the way in creating vegan and cruelty-free makeup and skincare brushes that are safe for your skin and the planet and are designed to optimize the application and absorption of skincare products. Their popular Pinnacle foundation brush has made such a big difference for me. I used to hate wearing foundation because it always felt so caked on, but with this brush, I can use so little product and it goes on flawlessly due to its patented triangular shape. Anissa Beauty's brushes deliver value and quality like no other. The same goes for their Pinnacle Skin Brush, which has completely changed how I apply skincare. I no longer use my hands to apply my products. Check out the Pinnacle Foundation Brush as well as several other amazing brushes at anissabeauty.com and get 30% off site-wide with the code DATEABLE. That's ANISA beauty.com. And don't forget to use the code DATEABLE. Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to Dateable. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to the last episode of the year. 2024 is almost done.
What? Really? This is it? This is it for 2024? We can say goodbye?
2024 has definitely been a good year for me in many ways, so I don't want to discount it. Obviously, our book has been a big part of it, getting engaged, going to Italy. There were some good moments for me, but it was also a hard year in many ways too. I think like sometimes, you don't always see the behind the scenes with people and like just the milestones sometimes outshadow it, I guess. So I'm kind of ready for the next year for things maybe to be more in motion. This year was a lot of like build up for me.
A setup year, a fluffer year, if you will.
Fluffer year. I'm going to call it that. I like it.
I don't think any year will be as built up as 2020.
No.
So compared to 2020, this is a fabulous year. I still remember when we did the 2020, what was it?
Wait, 2020 vision. Yeah, we met with this guy that was going to help us with PR because I think that was the first year that we were like, okay, Dateable, there's something here. Let's do something. Because it was pretty much a hobby for us for many years prior to that. It was more of let's actually be intentional with it. And we met with this PR guy that we got referred to through a friend, and he was like, guys, I have it for you. 2020 vision. And then we saw that everywhere. We're like, not original.
And we paid him $1,500 for that.
And then all the predictions of 2020 got sideswiped. But 2025, do you have any predictions for 2025 outside of everyone falling in love because they're going to have their hands on how to be dateable? That's my prediction.
Okay, so I met up with a friend of a friend who is a child therapist.
Okay.
And she said she works with a lot of Gen Alpha, Gen Z, that generation. And she says all of them are sick of screens. They're like, we're sick of sitting in the same place, but everybody's on their phone, or sitting with my parents and everyone's on their phone. So these kids actually told her that they're willing to give up screens in the new year. I don't know completely. I don't think completely. Nobody can give up their screens completely. But I think there might be a trend where maybe people will be like, hey, how about we do a no screen dinner tonight or a no screen meetup today?
Yeah, do you watch the show Shrinking, Yue?
No,
On
I know you
Apple
love that
TV?
show.
I'm obsessed with that show. You should watch it. I was like bawling my eyes out at the season finale, but I love crying on TV shows, so it made me happy. But anyways,
You love crying.
I do. Gotta get a good cry out, and it's not like. Anyways, they had it was actually around Thanksgiving, even though it just aired the other day. So they had this thing at the Thanksgiving that everyone put their phone in a basket, so they couldn't use it. You know how when you enter a party? Yeah, I think there's going to be more of that happening. I could totally see that.
I like that. I would appreciate that. I actually got rid of anything with a screen on my wrist. So 2 years ago, I had a Fitbit, then I had an Apple Watch, and then I simplified that to a Whoop, which doesn't have a screen. And now I just have an Aura Ring because I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to have things that distract me on my body. And maybe I'll try to do that with my phone too. I don't know, try to turn it off at a certain time in the day.
My partner would love that so much. What I'm going to implement this year, I've promised him, is no phones at dinner. And then the hour after.
Yes. Yes. I think that would save every relationship.
I think also in I feel like we've been saying this for the last couple of years, but I really think that dating apps are at a turning point that they need to do something different because people are really getting discouraged with them. I think more and more, like you said, people don't want to be on screens. They want IRL opportunities. And I think especially with the younger generation, this is the way they've dated it. It reminds me of us when we were so burnt out by just going out endlessly and never meeting anyone in person. So when dating apps came on the scene, it was revolutionary. But for them, that's all they've had. So now the burnout is happening in the other way. They're looking towards matchmakers and speed dating and this stuff that feels so archaic, I think, to our generation. So I think there needs to be a major shakeup in the way that dating apps connect people because I'm still so pro dating app because I do think you can meet people that you just wouldn't come in contact with and it's so much more efficient. But just swiping on a photo, it's been this now for since 2012? That's over a decade plus. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are now old enough and we've been living on this earth enough to see the pendulum swing from one end to the other. So I think we saw it from the extreme of dating apps when everyone was like, oh my God, dating apps, let's get on these. And there's so many options. And now swing the other direction, which is okay, how do we balance dating apps with meeting people in real life and not seeing people as disposable? It's the same thing as when the internet came on the scene. Do you remember the chat rooms, how dangerous they were?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember chatting with probably 50-year-old men when I was 13, pretending to be little girls.
So creepy.
And they had to implement all these privacy and safety features on the internet. So now we're swinging the other way. I think it's with everything with technology, same with AI. Right now we're at the start of AI. We are kind of seeing people going, I don't know, it's the wild, wild west. But in 10 years is going to swing another way that's going to stabilize it a little bit more. So I think that's what it is. Next year will be the stabilization period of online dating, whatever that may mean.
Well, whatever it is, whether you choose to pursue more IRL options or dating apps, we strongly believe it does not need to be an either or. There's room for both. If you do it with balance and intention, which all of this will be available in our book. I just can't get over that it's coming in January. Whatever your path is, it's kind of agnostic. The book is going to help you, approach dating in a way that's just refreshing and energetic. I think we just need that rejuvenation put into dating in 2025.
And people who are now in relationships, whenever they hear about people dating, they always go, oh, I'm so glad I'm not dating right now. And I'm like, no, that shouldn't be the case. I don't want this generation of daters to feel oh, this is so bad. Dating right now is so terrible. I wish I found a partner before this whole love crisis happened. I think we have a real chance to turn this around and have people all envy us for having these options in dating and say, oh my gosh, I wish I had the opportunity to date right now. So, and I think in this book, we do outline this format of how we can really rise above modern dating and really enjoy the process.
No, I'm just so bullish because I don't know. I've been like reflecting. Obviously, in December is always this time of reflection. And then, just recently getting engaged to just thinking back to like my whole journey. And it's like, I really did use so much of how the book is outlined. And you did too. I think both of us. And also, we followed daters in our community that we saw just had a different approach. And, that kind of used a lot of these methodologies that made it to the other side and found amazing partners, but also just like went about it in a more lighthearted way where it didn't like wear down your mental health. I think that is the true testament. But I'm just like so thankful that like, that we're putting this out for people because I just feel like more and more people need to like have that lightness into their dating life.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And last night I was talking to my man friend and we were like, what do we need to do on a daily basis to feel fulfilled? And it's like on one side, we want to show ourselves self-love and self-care. And on the other side, we want to be able to contribute in some way. And he's like, what do you think is your contribution to society? Yeah. And I was like, Julie and I really wrote this book for people. And I think that's our biggest contribution to date is for people to feel this optimism and hope in a very actionable, practical way, and also feel like this is supposed to be such an enjoyable, lovely journey of finding love and finding your person that we've kind of lost track of that. And I think we can get back on track.
Definitely. And, it's been three plus years that we've been working on this. It took us a full solid year to write, but then more with like rewrites. But I think it just really shows like the amount of, writing a book is definitely a labor of love. Anyone that writes a book, just the pure act of it alone, it is not easy. But the fact that we were able to take everything we've learned in this podcast for the last decade, it just like truly is a gift that we even had the opportunity to have our voices heard that way and that we get to give this out to everyone.
And we really want to thank you all for being along for the ride. I know this has been a secret for a little bit. We couldn't announce it till this year, but could you all just do us a really big favor? Here's the thing. It's like we've been working on this for over 3 years. We're so excited about it. We feel so passionate about it. But we also know that when it does get out into the universe, it may feel like, oh, now it's out. Okay, like we worked 3.5 years and it's like, boom, it's just out there. Could you all please just help us hype up the book so we can keep going with this excitement and this hope and optimism? Because I don't want this to be like January 28th comes around and we just go, okay, now it's out in the universe. Like, let's all galvanize around the book. And that's like the best gift you can give us is to build excitement, pre-order, let your friends know, let them pre-order. You can get the audiobook. There's so many ways to get your hands on this book. And the more people who can read the book, the better our dating lives will be.
Oh my God, a more dateable dating pool. That's gift in itself. But yes, howtobedateable.com. You can still get all of our pre-order gifts too that will be going away once the book comes into the world. So if you want to get a bunch of free extras that we like kind of calculated out was like $108 value for the price of just the book. We're doing this because pre-ordering is like a weird thing. And we're trying to like, have a way that we can celebrate you for doing it. Like this is something that many authors do as a way of saying like, thank you for pre-ordering and supporting us.
Yes. And again, that's the best gift you can give us this year and next year.
And speaking of books, we have another author on, return guest, one of our favorites, John Kim, aka The Angry Therapist. You may be familiar with his work. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and he hosts the podcast, The Angry Therapist Podcast. I love his like written work in general, like the books, but also on Instagram. He has so many posts. And, we had him on the podcast, season 12, episode 20, Single on Purpose, where we talked about his first book. And now he's back to talk about the book that just came out today, Breakup on Purpose.
And his first book, Single on Purpose, was such a hit that he's actually built a community around it and created an app out of it. So if you're interested in joining this Single on Purpose community, we've linked a discount link to get into that app and to get into that community. And you can find other active daters who really want to date better.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like what we were talking about of like, what's an alternative to just swiping all the time? Like there's got to be a different way to leverage technology. And I think what John's putting out there is really like communal and some of the stuff that we're really missing in terms of connection. So I love just everything that he does. We're so happy to have him back because like his whole like on purpose franchise, if you want to call it that, it's not like become single on purpose, like break up with someone on purpose. The on purpose is like with intention. Mm-hmm. So it's just about like, how do we take these periods of life that maybe aren't necessarily like ultimately where we want to be and use them to really like foster growth and self-discovery instead of look at them as like a layover until I'm like in that happy relationship.
And why are we doing a breakup episode for our last episode of the year? Well, it's really about how do we think about the ending of relationships or ending of seasons or chapters in your life. And this is perfect for the end of the year to think about the ending of 2024 too. And in his book, he talks about several types of breakups. You might have gone through some. I think I've gone through 7 out of the 8 types of breakups that he outlines. And it's nice to see that they're all very different from each other. So you can feel like there are so many other opportunities that people have gone through breakups that are similar to yours and also not similar to yours. And then also, what do you learn from each of these breakups? Yes, relationships ending are hard, but there's also the positive side of it all, which is like you get to grow and expand from them.
Yeah. So this is really for anyone, that's in the thick of a breakup. We did this like, it was like a PR for an article that we got quoted, or you got quoted on this one date that like December is breakup season and it keeps surfacing every year. It's like the gift that keeps giving. But December, January is breakup season. So you may be in the thick of it right now. If you are, then this episode is certainly for you. But I loved his book and I'm not in a breakup, but it was really great to like reflect on the past and see like what, is maybe still lingering that you can free yourself from, that you don't take in to your next relationship, or just if you want to see like how far you've come in the last couple years.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you get to map out your growth from all the ending of relationships. And what you'll learn from this conversation, again, we talked about there are 8 types of breakups, and it's actually kind of fun to see what the 8 of them are. So check them off if you've been through them. And then a new perspective on what breakups mean and what they can really trigger for you, but how they can be so healing in the process as well.
And really just like how to reframe a breakup. So it's not blaming or shaming yourself, but looking at like how you could take ownership and grow from them. And like we said, this is just a fun conversation. I know people are like, breakups, how is this fun? But John really makes it a fun conversation. So we're happy to leave you all with this for the end of the year, because I think actually it is uplifting and will put people in a good mood despite the topic.
And then you learn a fact about him from his childhood that I cannot disclose and I still can't get out of my mind. I don't know if that changes my little crush on John Kim or not, but
you're not so secret one that you keep talking about in every episode.
I'm like, do I actually like him even more now that I know this about his childhood? You'll have to find out.
We're going to leave it at that. Yeah. Okay, well, this is such a great episode. We can't wait to dive in. Like we said before, this is, the time. January is hitting. Our book is coming out. Make sure to pre-order if you haven't yet. howtobedateable.com. Share it with a friend. Yell it from the rooftop. Tell everyone. And also leave us some ratings and reviews. It helps so much. Continue to get great guests like John and, just build this podcast up. That is a free gift that you can give us this holiday season.
Oh, yes, please give us all the gifts and ratings and give us the gifts in 5-star ratings and reviews. That means so much to us. That's been on our wish list for a long time.
Yes, we still are trying to get to 1K. The goal, it's still there. Help us. And then at Dateable Podcast, that is where you find us. We have been, doing we've been having fun with Instagram posts a lot this year. So make sure you're following us there if you aren't, because there's a lot of like different different written content that gets surfaced that way that personally is very enjoyable to also produce.
Yes. And as we shape up for the new season, we've already started recording a lot, but there is some room for other guests and topics. So if you have any requests, is there a topic that we haven't covered in our 500 plus episodes? Well, think about it. Maybe go back through a back catalog, but let us know what are your most interested in topics or guests that you would recommend. Definitely you can, DM us on Instagram, or you can email us hello@dateablepodcast.com as well.
Yep. And like we mentioned, we are not going anywhere in the off season. We're going to have different content. We're going to be revealing a quiz that's in our book that will be available actually starting next week when this next episode airs. And you'll be able to take the quiz and learn about your dating archetypes. So this has been something that we've been doing other people's podcasts to promote the book that will all be coming out around the release. People have been really gravitated towards, like, to understand like what type of dater you are, what are your strengths and superpowers, and then what also might be holding you back and getting in your way. So we're really excited to release this early for anyone that wants to do this for free on the How to Be Dateable website.
It's a fun quiz. Could you be a maverick? Could you be a thinker? I'm just going to leave you with those.
A dreamer. There's so many. There's 5 of them.
There's a song. You'll learn it.
Oh my God. You always been practicing because I don't even know the song.
From having ChatGPT write it right now.
Oh, goodness gracious. That's why you need to follow us on Instagram, because maybe we'll share it. We'll see how it comes out. Anyways, before we get into it with John, Happy New Year, and let's hear a message from our sponsors.
Cuffing season, or as we like to call fluffing season, is here. Want to add some holiday cheer into the bedroom? Spice up your life with the natural power of cannabis with Via. Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a medium dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. And they just dropped their High Love bundle, which includes a pack of gummies and a vape, so you can unlock the full experience at a reasonable price. I am all about these gummies that make me feel so good. I tell you, it's the real deal. And if THC isn't for you, you can still take advantage of their CBD line with products designed for sleep, focus, and energy that will keep you glowing all year long. So if you're 21 or older, head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off. That's VIIAHEMP.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp. It feels so great when you can get someone a gift they wouldn't necessarily get for themselves. It's like a little reminder that they're worth it. So for quality gifts at an affordable price, my go-to is Quince. There's something for everyone. And I truly think you can't go wrong with their cashmere line, including their iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at just $50. I actually just got the short sleeve version in brown, and it looks so luxe paired with some white slacks and brown loafers. Hello, rich auntie vibes. And for whatever you're looking for, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They can do this by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to you. Gift luxury this holiday season without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/dateable for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable.
Okay, let's hear it from John Kim.
We have a return guest with us today, who is probably the coolest, angriest therapist I know. John Kim, so happy to have you back, and so happy to talk about your book that's already out.
It is out wide, and also thank you for calling me cool at 51. I don't get a lot.
You're like the angry I can own, but the cool.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of angry, but not a lot of cool, so I appreciate that. That makes me feel good.
We're so excited to have you back. I think like what Yue and I love about your work, and we had you on our podcast to talk about your other book, Single on Purpose, and now we're talking about Breakup on Purpose, so it's the perfect next segue. But we love how you are able to take these times of life that often at times feel like a setback and use them as a catalyst for growth.
Yeah. After a breakup, once the dust settles and you're ready to kind of examine the black box to see how the plane went down, there's so much growth soil. And if you try to find someone else as fast as you can, that growth soil will calcify because now you're in a new dynamic, and things that you could have looked at and repaired and investigated, like that step is missed. And now you're creating something with someone new.
You really have a fresh take on breakups, which I really appreciate because it's probably one of my favorite topics, believe it or not. It's so great because we don't talk about breakups. We talk about heartbreak.
Yeah.
We talk about getting back into dating.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the act of moving away from a relationship. And you say, turn a heartbreak into a breakthrough. And so why do you think it's important for us to really turn our attention to the breakup itself?
Thank you for championing breakups, because I think you're right. We don't really talk a lot about what happened, and I think there's different types of breakups. So one of my angles of this book is no one talks about how there's different types of breakups and what's prescribed based on the type of breakup. So for example, if it's what I call a flat soda breakup, where the breakup was mutual, your healing from that's going to be very different than, say, a blindsided breakup, right? Where someone blindsided you. One day you're with someone, next day you're not. So I think not all breakups are the same.
Yeah. And you talk about like your kind of mother of all breakups, your divorce that you went through at length in the book. The D word. And we're definitely going to go into the different types of breakups later on. But I'm curious, like with the divorce, it clearly reset like a whole new chapter for you as becoming a therapist and being with your now wife. By the way, congrats. We saw that your recent wedding and, your beautiful daughter. So like, how would you look at your divorce now that like got you here?
Yeah. When I went through the divorce at that time, I was 35, had no sense of self, was broke, had no sense of purpose. And I was a screenwriter, spent many years just kind of like punching keys at coffee shops. And the divorce kind of chopped me at my knees. And at that time, it was the hardest thing. Like it was the worst thing that happened in my life at that time, right? The sky was falling. What am I going to do? My ex, I put on a pedestal. And my life was, revolving around her. It's like the sun went down. But now looking back, if it wasn't for that one event, because it completely repositioned me, I don't know what I would be doing today. I don't think I'd be a therapist. I would still probably be a miserable fuck, which I was. It changed my life by forcing me to look at myself and re-examine my life. Like I wouldn't have done that unless something that drastic happened to me, You
talk about how in a breakup, it spotlights the parts of yourself that were buried in the relationship. But also, I would say not all of us going through a breakup choose to spotlight those areas. So what was it about this divorce breakup that motivated you to do the work?
I didn't really have a choice because with the divorce, I kind of left with nothing. I had no friends. I had no money. I just went on Craigslist and found a roommate. And so starting there at 35, I didn't know who I was or what I was going to do with my life. But, at the same time, when you lose everything, you have nothing to lose. Right. So it's almost easier. It would be harder for me now with, like the whole picket fence thing. But back then, leaving, it was kind of a clean break. My first question was like, what do I do? How do I start? And I knew that it would be an inward journey. So I just started reevaluating everything. What I wanted to do, my relationships, what made me feel alive, just like, one day at a time. But I really kind of like shook my life Etch-a-Sketch, which is dating me, I guess. But that's an 80s term that no one probably knows what I'm talking about.
We know that.
Oh, we do.
Oh, you guys know that. Oh, thank you. It's a toy that you, when you shake it, it clears the drawing and you can start over.
It's in the Smithsonian right now.
Is it?
Wow. Yeah, that's why we know.
That
no, it's not.
I believed you for a second.
It's vintage.
Do you remember, like, was there any defining point, John, where you were just like, okay, I'm seeing now the beauty of this breakup?
Wow, that's a tipping point. When you start to see beauty in the pain, that's such a great moment. That's such a great tip. I think I would say one of the things I did is I bought a motorcycle. I've had 6 now. And after my divorce, I said, I've always wanted a motorcycle. Everyone said no. All girlfriends said no. Parents said no. I was like, fuck, I'm going to get one real quick. And then it's going to come with me. Like if I was an action figure, it'd be the package. You can't separate us. It comes together in the box. So I rushed out and got this little motorcycle Ducati. And I would say moments on that bike hugging canyons in Malibu where I felt connected to the part of me when I was like 12. You know, I was ripping around with a bowl haircut and a strawberry shortcake t-shirt because my parents didn't know. I was like 10. And a little scooter. I felt so free in the 80s. It was my wonder years. And I connected to that part of me that I locked into a hope chest because life happened, you know? That's when things started tipping. So it was more of a somatic thing, not a logical thing, right? It was a felt sense in my body. And this is why I say that sometimes self-betterment is more about a reunion than anything else, because in relationships, especially marriages, long-term relationships, you start disconnecting with parts of you that you actually like or forgot about, you know?
That's interesting you say that, because I think about my last major breakup due to infidelity, one of your 8 breakups that you describe in your book. And I think there was a moment where I reconnected to my childhood. I remember being in Athens, Greece, and there was a hopscotch. Someone drew it with chalk.
Yep.
And I could not help but play on this hopscotch. And strangers walked by and said, "Do you want us to take video?" And I was like, "Yes, please record this." And I do remember that moment being welcoming of this like 6-year-old self of that I kind of forgot about and swept away somewhere. And I felt really good after that. Something released in me. So it's interesting that you also kind of connected that to your childhood.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, we are in our solid self when we're children, before taxes, before we know what's cool, or before rejection, before pain. There's like a moment, and I think it is the wonder years. It is like 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, unless you're going through, you know, unsafe spaces and trauma and all that. There's like a purity to children. They're not exchanging truth for membership, and they are really in their solid self and not pseudo. There's a purity in that. And of course, we lose that as we grow up, you know? And so tapping into moments of that for me on 2 wheels, for you on 1 leg. But those are valuable moments.
I think what you were saying too about the sacrifices that we make in relationships. Like I remember after my, you know, big breakup that we're going to go into, like that first one that really devastates you.
Yes.
I felt like I lost a piece of myself. And I think what you're saying of like, no one would ever let me get a motorcycle. I'm just going to do it. You know, and I think there is some of that that's kind of nice that you're like regaining sense of self. Can you look at any other breakups in your life outside of the big D one that helped you propel forward?
I mean, every single one in a different way. One of my breakups, I left a relationship too soon. This is the relationship before the one I'm in now. We were together for 3 years, and I admit I blindsided her. There was a knowing at a bar. We were in Colorado, and we realized something's wrong, something's missing. The chemistry's changing. We should do something about it. Instead of going to couples therapy, instead of, you know, investigating, exploring, within 2 weeks, I was already kind of moving out. What that breakup taught me was that I was irresponsible and that I was running and I didn't do any kind of work. I pulled a John Kim, which is never saying bye to people at parties. I call it the Korean exit. I fucking left, and I left. She had a lot of trauma in life. It triggered and activated a lot of stuff with her, and then she went into like a downward spiral. And then on top of that, I got together with a mutual friend like 3 weeks after I left. And then, of course, she thought, oh, this is why you left. You've been fucking cheating on me, which makes sense. So it like compounded that. And then now I was stuck with leaving a relationship and then dating someone brand new and getting pulled on each side. I had my first panic attack within the, And looking back, the big lesson for me in that is there's a way to leave a relationship that's responsible, and there's a way to break up that is not responsible. And that was one breakup where I was not responsible.
I think it hasn't led to a breakup, but I feel like sometimes when I have like things come up with my partner, I feel my instinct to go there also, to like run away from it. And I have to be like, this isn't really what I want. With any relationship, there's got to be hard times, and that's not like the growth that I'm looking for. Like it's actually harder to push through and to like confront stuff. So I totally see that natural instinct, and I can see what from your story of if you were to experience that you did kind of throw in the towel with it, that you could look back and be like, oh, what was this revealing that I need to work on in the future?
Yeah, and also having something shiny in front of you in this case, another person, and then me feeling like desired. I sort of came to that. I allowed that to be an excuse to not stay in something and work on something, but leave early.
Knowing what you know now, did you ever share this with her?
I don't think she'll talk to me.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she likes me.
Yeah, she has to read the book to hear it.
I guess I wouldn't either.
She will burn that book. She definitely will not contribute to buying any books from me. Do you guys wish that you can sit down with your exes and have any kind of conversation / closure? Or are you guys like, fuck that, never again?
I feel like I was able to get that closure with my, I guess, most serious ex that we broke up. Because we had a very open relationship. We're still in contact, even though it's not like a relationship of any sort. I've clearly moved on, and so has he. But it's more like I've gotten apologies from him years later, and we've talked. And it does help to some degree. And I think I wish I maybe had it with a couple other people. I feel like for me, I was like, I don't feel ill will to you. And I think it kind of frees you a bit. And I think they're actually this is kind of interesting, but it was I was bringing a lot of the trauma from that relationship of feeling like it was moving a certain direction and then kind of got taken away from me and sideswiped into my current relationship. And actually talking to my ex was able to put that to bed and see how different my current relationship is.
Yeah.
So I was able to not bring that forward. So I think the closure was good in that case.
When you say open, you don't mean non-monogamy.
Oh, no, sorry.
Because you said open relationship.
Wait, what did I say?
You said something about an open relationship, how your relationship was so open. I was like, that means something different these days.
Now she's
so
to clarify, I meant open communication. I was like,
yes, open
I
communication.
didn't even realize that came out.
Open communication is very different than an open relationship.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
John's that's an interesting result from
where is
finding
the
closure
story going?
So we decided to open. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Well, maybe you didn't know, John, but we do have an offshoot podcast that we did a while ago called The Exit Interview, where we did bring on daters and 3 of their previous, an ex or someone they've slept with or a hookup or a fling to figure out what went wrong. So we could do a whole season with you if you want to. I mean, I'm just proposing that right now.
I would pay you if you can get my exes in a room with me. Maybe a couple would show up, but I don't think most of them would.
God, if we had a whole season of just John and your exes, that'd be amazing.
It'd be so entertaining.
A therapist trying to get closure from his exes.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to know. That'd be so good. That'd be so good. I do fantasize about this all the time because I am branding myself as someone who mentally kills her exes after leaving the relationship. So I don't ever talk to any of them. But now I'm at a point in my life now where I feel like I could open that door. And what I wouldn't do is I don't need closure. I don't think that's the purpose. What I would want would be feedback. I think being in an intimate romantic relationship with someone is so special and unique that your friends, your family can't see you in that light and they can't give you feedback in that light. So it'd be kind of fascinating for me to learn what is your feedback from what you remember from our relationship.
It's sad that we can't receive feedback when we're in the relationship. It's only after the relationship has expired that we're like, okay, now you can give me the review. Now I'm going to listen.
I know. 10 years later, I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready to take it. I can handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, the first thing I'd want would be to know that they don't hate me. And then even if we're never going to see each other again, I mean, we're on this planet for such a short time. And then, of course, like you, yes, I would want some feedback on how I showed up and, what I could work on for sure. It's valuable.
Well, that's why I think breakups are so hard. Because obviously, if you're the one being broken up with, that is, there's a lot of self-esteem and worth that comes with that. Mm-hmm. And then if you're the one doing the breaking up, there is guilt in this feeling like you're a bad guy or girl or whoever. There was this quote that Yue used to have above her bed that was we're all each other's consequences.
Mm.
I love that you're she had it above her bed.
You did.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Why was that? That was the mantra you woke up with? We're all each other's consequences?
Imagine every guy coming over.
I feel boy. I never thought of it that way, but you did have it right over your head.
It's
Maybe
a little
that's
dark.
what was wrong.
I mean, it could be kind of kinky, but it's a little dark.
Yue's why was I single during that period period of my life.
Now I know.
We have just uncovered.
What made you put that banner above your bed?
I think it's because I had felt that everybody was carrying someone else into their current environment. Nobody came into a relationship a clean slate. So everybody's carrying a little bit of someone else right before them.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we're all each other's, right? Like there's residue from previous relationships. So we're not coming in fresh, we're coming in stained.
Yeah. So I think finding that closure can like help you show up better for the next person too.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And also that review.
I actually found closure by just reading your book and reading about the different breakups. So I think, whether you're going through a breakup or maybe you're not, I still think this book is super useful. I want to go into like 4 of kind of the big ones, and then time permitted, we'll go either further or we'll at least just address them.
Yeah, we probably can't hit all 8.
Yeah. But maybe let's start with like the big breakup, that first true love breakup, because I remember just not being able to get out of bed, like literally being in bed and not being able to move. What happens with this breakup and why does it have such a big impact?
Well, I just want to point out real quick, and you said that you got closure by reading this book, and I love that you said that, not because it's my book, but I love the idea that you don't need someone else to give you closure, because if you do, you may never have closure. I actually think closure is kind of a myth. What happens is you have new experiences that kind of eclipse the old. You always remember, and sometimes we snap back and stuff, and we play the highlight reel or whatever. I don't think anything is really just closed. It's not like, the door's closed, never again. I don't go there and then I move forward. That's not how life is. Life is gray, and there's, I can't speak for you guys, but I'm in now going on a 7-year relationship. And yeah, of course I've thought about other relationships. It doesn't mean I want to go back, but of course I've played back, the good, the bad, this, sideways, whatever. So this idea of closure, I think, is misleading.
I'm really glad you said that, because like even when we were just talking about before, like reopening the door and talking to our exes, I think like for me, I had to find that on my own. The closure, like I didn't find that with my ex. I think maybe it was like a confirmation, or like by the time we had that convo, I was like, had already found it. So I was able to just forgive and like move forward and let go a little. But I think I agree with you. Like we've talked to friends before and people on this podcast that like when you're purposely trying to seek closure from someone, you never actually get it. Like it's never the result that you're looking for.
Yeah. Also, it's exhausting. Also, it's powerless.
Yeah.
Also, it's a lot of expectation and crossing fingers and wishing, and it's just anxiety provoking.
I did have a friend who had an interesting take on closure, though. She said, I don't think closure is about getting answers. It's about saying what I need to say, getting everything said to this other person. So she did write a letter to her ex. She actually read it to him out loud in person. She said, I don't need a response from you. I just want to say everything I need to say. And that was a closure she needed.
Oh, I like that.
The big one where you kind of compare all breakups to, usually they're associated with kind of our first love, or when our hearts were powdered snow, as I talked about in the book. It's the, maybe not high school or the college. It's when we're in our 20s, usually, when it was our first big breakup. And one of the things I want to point out with this type of breakup is, when you go back to like your elementary school and you see the chairs you sat in, and you're like, look how tiny these chairs are. And all the memories you have from that time, or maybe summer camp, the world was big. And, you go to where you got into the fight, or where you kissed someone, or you wrote your name on the tree, and it just, everything seems so miniature or different, as an adult. And I think we have to realize that the big one was big because it was like when we were kids, it was a very like new first experiences of love. And also when you replay it, you're not seeing that breakup through, the 51-year-old you're seeing that breakup back through the eyes when you were 18 that summer or whatever. And so in your mind, as you're playing things back, they are still huge and emotions are big and it's life and death. And I think that's why they tend to linger. They become, things that we carry for a long time.
Yeah.
So I definitely can see like the younger you are, the more experiencing this. Like personally, I feel like I had some relationships prior, but they were never like that heartfelt, like I am so in love. So mine actually, I feel like hit when I was like 30 is when I like experienced that. So like, I guess like, can this hit later on? Like even if you've had past?
Of course. Yes, and I think that a lot of times the big one is probably the one that was the most unhealthy.
Yeah,
the most toxic. My big one wasn't when I was 18. It was when I was 35. It was my marriage. That was the big one. And a lot of that, looking back, I didn't know it at the time, was very codependent, was enmeshed, there was a lot of unhealthy dynamics happening in the relationship, which made it very, what I call, sticky. And that's why it was so big. And at that time, I didn't have a life. So it was very big. The cliff I fell off was very high. As opposed to say, like, now I have a life. If a relationship didn't work out, the cliff wouldn't be as high. And it's not because I love her less or that the relationship is not meaningful. It means that I have more sense of self. I have a life. I'm not, falling into an abyss of nothing.
I want to dive into this even more. But before we do, let's take a quick break to hear from our partners.
What an incredible year has been, Dateables. As I welcome the new year, I have some lofty goals for myself, including learning a new language. And I know I can do that with Rosetta Stone, the most trusted language learning program available on desktop or as an app. And it truly immerses you in the language you want to learn. I've heard that learning a new language fosters more empathy, and I'm all about it. And Rosetta Stone makes the learning process so intuitive and immersive with no English translations, which really makes you learn to speak, listen, and think in that language. Want to learn Dutch or Arabic, Chinese, or French? With 25 languages to choose from, the world is your oyster. Start the new year off with a resolution you can reach. Today, Dateable listeners can take advantage of this New Year's special of Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership. Visit rosettastone.com/today. That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your New Year's offer at rosettastone.com/today. Today.
Let me guess, you have a life and job that you love, but the one thing missing is love itself. If you want to take your dating journey seriously this year, we highly recommend checking out Dating Intentionally wherever you get your podcasts. Dating Intentionally is hosted by Talia Karen, who's on a mission to make dating fun and help you date with confidence. Talia pulls from her own experience going on 180 dates with over 60 people in just 10 months, which ultimately led to her getting married. She's also joined by therapists, coaches, experts, and authors like us. We had a great conversation with Talia on her show all about dating skills you need to find the relationship you want. That's episode 78. If you're looking for practical, no-nonsense advice that you can apply to your dating life today, you can listen to Dating Intentionally on Tuesdays and Fridays on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Could you also argue that love becomes less potent or passionate as we find more independence in our lives?
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but love becomes kind of flat.
Well,
love becomes boring.
I mean, that is really sad to say. But
that is really sad. Yeah, no.
What's so beautiful about that big breakup is that you really felt this all-consuming love for this person.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could ever feel that way again. And I don't know if that's just like due to time or just because I've just become more solidified in my own person.
Yeah, I think that the lightning in the bottle that we've experienced early on, or maybe even later, that had more to do with dysfunction than actual. There is this kind of like, I don't know, sometimes it's trauma bond. There's something about the collision of two people with a lot of wounds that can be mistaken for passion and fiery and excitement. I mean, it's like makeup sex, right? It's like when, it's all chemistry. That's very different than building a healthy, sustainable relationship with someone. And the healthy, sustainable relationship probably doesn't have the sparks. I mean, it has its own sparks. They're just different, They're not M80s going off. They might be sparklers. I don't know. But
it's a good analogy.
But then it's kind of sad. I shouldn't say sparklers. But then we think like, oh, this isn't maybe the one, or this isn't as powerful, But then we don't play back, well, then why did the other one end?
Yeah,
and what were those ruptures like,
I think what was really good for my growth from the big breakup was that I think I never held this identity as like a girlfriend or a partner because I considered myself like a later bloomer. And like some of my past experiences were more like one-sided feeling or casual or situationships, all that. So I think being in that first big relationship where I felt deeply and had the feelings reciprocated, it showed me that I could love and that I had the capacity to be a good girlfriend and do all the things. So I think that actually helped growth positively. And then on the flip side, showed kind of what was missing, like what you were just saying of what I didn't want in my next relationship. So I guess like from your perspective, like how can people reflect on the big one to actually help them move forward for the right relationship ultimately?
Well, the big one usually is so big that it makes you not only think about the relationship, but it kind of makes you evaluate your entire life.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times a big one is a leaving of a relationship where you lived together. It's life-changing. And so not only are you leaving a relationship, but you're also considering, are my friends the friends I want? What do I want to do in this world? And you do a life audit after the big one. You know, I think because of that, the big one is significant. It's not just a chapter of your life. It can be an act break. You know, that's what it was for me.
I mean, it made me go to therapy. I feel like it's kind of propelled this podcast forward. There were a lot of things that it did. Yeah.
Yeah. It made me go back to school, become a therapist.
Right.
It did a lot of things for me, for sure.
That's great. What about this almost relationship breakup? I think this one has hurt me the most of all the breakups.
This one people minimize. You know, it's like, well, you've only dated the person for a month. Like, what are you so sad about?
Right. Or you're not even defined. We always hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
But you guys weren't even together. I think the impact of a breakup isn't necessarily determined by how long a relationship is, because sometimes the almost relationship is more devastating than, say, a 10-year marriage where it was over, 7 years in and 3 years you guys are just friends, right?
Yeah.
But the almost breakup, which is really difficult about this, is not so much the relationship, there's that, and that might have been exciting, but what could have been.
Yeah.
So there's a secondary loss.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about baby names, and like you paint this fantasy in your head because this is going so well and it's only been a month, but you're like, oh, I could see myself in Italy with this person, and I could see what kind of house we would buy, and like this whole other world that's going to happen. And that's just us being human. Of course, we're going to fantasize and think about the future. And so that's gone. And that's what makes this so devastating, not just a 1 month, but what could have been.
Yeah, I think a lot of our audience could relate to this one because we're in the era of situationships and no one wanting to define everything. And then there's like this, it's almost like this shame that comes from it because like you were saying, it wasn't a real relationship or we never defined it. And I mean, I've definitely talked to people that have been divorced and then they had this like 2-month fling, and for whatever reason that hit harder. And I agree with you, it's like this time, and I think sometimes it's like the blindsidedness. I know you have another one of the blindsided breakup, but like there's something about like I thought this was going to play out and then it didn't.
Yeah, which is devastating. It's the hope.
Yeah.
So how do you grow from it? Like if this happens to you?
Well, I think first you have to understand that why this is so powerful is because of all the stuff that didn't happen that you thought was, right? I think just understanding that grounds you and makes you realize, oh, everything that I'm losing actually never happened. It's kind of in my head. It doesn't mean that the collision wasn't real or the chemistry wasn't powerful. It just means that you're probably grieving the secondary losses more or just as much as what you lost. And I think understanding that puts things into perspective. And then you're like, oh, I see why this is impacting me so much. So I think that's step one, is just to realize that. There's something misleading about an almost relationship because society, friends, family are minimizing things for you and you feel kind of unseen. You feel like you're crazy. You're not crazy. You just put a lot of weight into, you've just been future tripping.
Yeah, totally.
You're not crazy. You just have distorted thoughts like everyone else.
In the fantasy.
Yeah.
The fantasy. Yeah.
These relationships have hit me hard because I've always been the one to break up with the person because I realize it's a situationship that's not going to turn into a relationship. And when you voluntarily walk away from the future of what could, that is really devastating because it took me months to think, did I make the right decision? Could I give it one more go?
Yeah.
Is this something I did that didn't turn this into a relationship? It was a lot of what ifs.
Also, the guilt of it. I would rather someone break my heart than me carry the guilt of breaking someone else's heart, you know?
This one's such a unique one too, because like a lot of times when you're walking away from it, it's not because you don't like the person and you don't want it to be a relationship.
Yeah.
In fact, you do, but you just can see that it's not going that direction. And I think it's one of those weird conflicting ones that you're like, yeah, I could see the second guessing. Did I make the right choice? Is there someone better out there? Like, how do you get out of that mindset? Like, if you, in your gut, think like this isn't going anywhere.
Well, I feel like if you know it's not going anywhere, maybe because two people have drifted too far to turn back, or people are just becoming different people and you're just not aligned. There's more acceptance in that to me, even though it's probably more painful than what someone did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? There's an acceptance when you're like, I love you, but we're just not aligned anymore. There's an acceptance there, and then you could get to grieving faster than you did something wrong. You need to fix it or you need to change. To me, the acceptance of an expiration to me is easier than betrayal.
So the next one, speaking of betrayal,
I know. It's like deep breath.
Perfect segue. You cheated, left me for someone else type of breakup.
Infidelity is probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing to heal from. Just doing a lot of couples work, such a small percentage of couples survive infidelity. And a lot of it is because the person that was cheated on holds that card up, or they'll say they have forgiven, but they carry it in the back pocket. And every time a fight happens, they just, look what you did. Remember what you did to me?
Yeah.
Remember who you fucked? Huh? So it just keeps rupturing. It's hard. I mean, I get it.
I actually find this one the easiest because I feel like
Sure.
the decision was made for me.
Yeah.
I can act with so much conviction now. When this happened to me, I thought, well, it's over. There's no conversation. There's no what ifs. There's no future. It's like, it's over now. Now I can act on the fact that it's over.
If someone cheats on you, is that an instant that's it, it's over, or is there an investigation, or is it's done?
I think in this circumstance, I was very surprised and maybe not surprised that my first instinct was it's over. I mean, there is absolutely no discussion. It's over. But also he didn't make an effort to stick around either. So that could have changed the scenario. Yeah. But definitely looking back, although it was like a painful stab, the wound didn't last as long.
Mm-hmm. It's easier to be angry than to just be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I do see, though, the perspective, though, and I'm saying this not as someone that's necessarily been through it, but we've heard from people that, you know, it also carries like this feeling of like, what was wrong with me to deserve it?
Yeah.
Not everyone processes it that way. Like, I think you were able to move past that phase, but I definitely know that hits some people. Like, how do you actually like flip the script on this and look at it as like something that's helping you and not necessarily like your fault that you caused the cheating to happen?
Well, I think a lot of cheating actually isn't even about the other person. Of course, we're going to take cheating personally. A lot of times people cheat because it's something that they're going through. It could be, I mean, anything from, you know, them not being happy in their lives, maybe a self-sabotage. I think, you know, when someone cheats on you, you instantly internalize, was I not enough? Am I not attractive enough? Am I not good in bed and all that? I would say most of the time it actually has nothing to do with you or the relationship. It has to do with the person, their way of coping, their feeling inadequate, insecure, all of that stuff, you know? The story I just shared about 3 weeks after me breaking up with someone, I was dating someone else. So I technically didn't cheat on that person, and that had to do with me not feeling desired. And suddenly this very attractive, like, you know, the prom queen, if you will, gave me attention. It was within me, my insecurity, and me wanting to feel desired more so than anything wrong with the relationship. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Where do you think the growth happens, though, for the person that either experienced the cheating or maybe even the cheater?
The growth always happens in the exploration of self, why you cheated, where it came from. So once you go below the surface, right? So the cheating is what's on the surface. Where did that come from? Why did I do it? What was I trying to numb or seek, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, what hole was I trying to fill, if any? I think that exploration of self is where always, you know, revelations happen, growth happens, understanding. So it's not about just judging, blaming. It's about exploring yourself, your patterns, or, you know, all that.
Yeah, which is always the hardest part.
And also cheating can just be like wrong place, wrong time, you know, one too much to drink and just a huge mistake. We're human, you know?
Yeah, kind of like going deep into why am I feeling this way because this happened? What does it bring up for me? And what is that related to from my past? Those are all, I think, questions that I had to deal with in a very confrontational way that was a little scary to kind of like, you know, go back to the past and other experiences that I've had. But I just don't understand, and I will get to the fourth one too, but I just don't understand why for so long our culture preaches numbing the pain. It's like, you know, in all the movies and TV shows, oh, so you went through a breakup? Let's hit the bars. The best way to get over someone is to get under someone. Go to a concert, go to a music festival, go get lost somewhere, go do some drugs. Why is this so much like about numbing? Is that a way that was effective until we realized the long-term effects of that being not effective?
I think what you're hearing are voices from cheerleaders who don't really know, but they just want to make you feel good. So they're on the sidelines saying, go get laid, you know, go do this, go do that. I think they have good intentions for you, but they're not people that know what you really need. A lot of our friends are like this.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you know what? You dodged a bullet. I got someone better for you.
Right.
But like, is that what you really need? And I think it's up to you to decide what you really need. And no one's going to give that to yourself better than you, you know?
Well, I think Yue, like what I observe with yours, and I think you said this, is that your first instinct in the past would have been to book a trip and get out of town. But instead you were like, I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to look at what really happened here.
Yeah, and that's great.
Yeah, and I think that like really propelled your growth. And like, I feel like you've experienced so much growth from this. Instead of taking like a victim mindset of the person that got cheated on, you were able to come out empowered. So I do think even in the worst of circumstances, like being cheated on, if you're wanting to find the growth, you can find it.
How long ago was this?
It was over a year ago.
Okay. And it's still kind of fresh. A year's not that.
Yeah, I think it's fresh in the way that I still think it's probably one of the best things to ever happen to me now that I'm saying this in hindsight. But thank you, Julie, for making that observation, because I do remember even the day I found out, I had so many friends offer for me to stay with them. Even my parents were like, come stay with us. And friends were like, you can stay with me as long as you want. And I think the old me would have said, yeah, I want to avoid the home that we shared at all costs so I can avoid all the memories and not be reminded. But something was calling to me to say, go confront it. Go reclaim your space back. And that's what I went straight home that day, and I mentally cleared him out of the space. And I sat there in the middle of my living room saying, this is my place. This is me. I get to write the rules now.
That's so empowering. I also want to applaud you running toward yourself instead of away. Running away from yourself would be travel, you know, I'm not getting the fuck out of it, whatever. And that isn't always bad, but instead you said, I'm going to do the harder thing, which is to sit with it, process it, look at it. You know, that's courageous, and I applaud that.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the last one that we want to dive in deep, because while the cheating one was Yue, this was mine to the T. The breakup that never ends, or the on again, off again relationship. I was in one for 5 years with the ex that I mentioned. But I think this cycle of breaking up and getting back together, it never felt like we actually broke up. Like, or it would, and then like that devastation would set in, and then like a couple months later, it would be like the same cycle all over again till you got numbed by it.
This breakup should be called the Chinese water torture.
It really is.
I always tell clients who say, should I get back together? My first question is, what's different? You know, is it someone's hair, abs? Like, what's different? And if two people haven't internally really changed so much that it's two new people entering the space, creating a new dynamic, if that's not happening, there's a high chance what broke this will break it again, because it's still there, you know? And so just because people are lonely or because you miss someone is not enough for that relationship to then be completely new, because you have to lay new tracks.
Yeah.
You have to show up differently, you know, and two people. And so, yeah, that's going to take time. Two people have to go on a journey, come back and be different for any round two to have any chance.
That was a hard lesson that I had to learn, is that like love does not conquer all. Because I mean, I still truly believe to this day that like my ex did love me, but it was like there were mental health things, there were things in the way that just caused it not to work. And it's something that like I took forward, that I was like, of course I want to love my next partner, don't get me wrong, but the foundation needs to be there. Like there needs to be more than just love. Like I need to be with someone that's ready for a relationship and like committed to making it work, instead of just going on again, off again the second it gets hard.
Yes. And I got to say, the try is honest, meaning there are a lot of people who they come back around for round two, they really give it their best shot. They really want to. There's just not enough has changed. People have not gone somewhere and come back.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess like the next ones just we'll touch on really briefly. The blindsided breakup, the soap opera breakup, and the flat soda breakup. I love that one where it should have been coming for a long time.
Yeah.
I guess why do you think each of these deserve their own category?
Oh, because they're so different from each other. I just don't like, oh, you're going through a breakup blanket statement. Like, what you went through with the infidelity breakup. It's so different than, say, if you had a friend who's like, oh, I just went through the same thing. Yeah, we broke up we broke up. The relationship was dead years ago and it was mutual. They're just different animals. It's cats and dogs. And everyone tends to just say a breakup is a breakup. And here's what you need to do. The prescription is usually the same. But it's like if I broke my arm, that'd be very different than, say, if I had head lice or something. That's really
You're right. That's two very different things.
How do you know you have a 5-year-old without saying you have a 5-year-old? I don't know what about it. Lice is going around. But
apparently head lice is a thing.
Yeah.
But that's a good point because I get so irked when people try to compare their experiences with mine because everybody knows what you're going through is inherently so different than what someone else went through. But I know people are trying to be empathetic and they're trying to, show you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, sometimes I just need my friends to be like, this sucks. Like, this really sucks. I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you.
I think one universal theme of all breakups, I really love the way you put this in your book, that instead of looking at it as a breakup, it's reframing it as an expiration. Mm-hmm. Like, why do you think this is so important to do the reframe?
Some people don't like this because they're like, you're comparing, my relationship to milk. But for me, it's helpful because there's an acceptance. I could accept that something has expired. It wasn't meant to go a day more. But a breakup seems traumatic. It seems someone did something to me. There was this huge, it's like chaos. An expiration sounds peaceful. There's sadness, but it's not puncturing, I like it. It's helped me with all my relationships that have ended to think that it's an expiration, not a breakup.
I mean, I think the expiration is so key because it at least makes it seem like you're now moving into that next stage of life instead of getting stuck in the breakup.
Yeah, I was on Armchair Expert once, and Dak Shepard disagreed. He had a big problem with me calling. Yeah, and he's like, I don't, and he was about to say why, but then I don't know how we got on this topic of me having sex with a plum when I was 12.
What? Which is you distracted him from disagreeing with you?
I just mentioned that I had sex with a plum when I was 12 because I was so curious. And I knew it wasn't, I knew it didn't feel like an apple pie. I just knew that even at 12. And once I said that, he was like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And then he totally forgot to tell me why he didn't agree with me calling a breakup an expiration.
It's the mystery still to this day.
Fuck, I was like, what? And I was so open to it. Like, I mean, I don't know what he was going to say. Maybe because, I don't know. But I was so curious, like, why... Yeah. Why does that bother you so much? I'm assuming because it's minimizing to the relationship, but we start talking about me having sex with a plum. So.
I mean, I don't even know how to go. I was going to say, there's so much from this conversation. Where do we even go after the plum incident?
It's on his podcast. It's deep. It's 2 hours of me talking about that. So
okay, well, we'll link that in the show notes for people.
We're going to title this episode "Sex with the Plum" just to get the views up.
Let's leave that behind.
Yeah, we'll leave that in the past. Over. That's expired,
Did you have to break up with the plum?
No.
Which type of break?
That was a very quick relationship.
Which kind of break?
That was a very quick relationship.
Almost relationship breakup.
It was the almost relationship. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think this has been such a great conversation. It's so helpful. I mean, whether you're in the thick of a breakup, unfortunately, December to January is breakup season. So people might be in the thick of it. But I think what I've gotten from this conversation and from personal experience, it may not seem like it in the moment when it's happening, but it usually ends up being like a blessing in the sense of you either realize this was not the right person for you, or it's that thing that propels like major change and growth within you. So I love just all of what you were saying of how do we start reframing breakups and how do we start examining ourselves and how we contributed to any of these. And then also know that like no one breakup is the same. Having the 8 different types, I think is super helpful for people because one, you don't feel alone of what you might be feeling that's unique to your breakup. But then you can also see like if something happens and also how much growth you've had. I think when I was reading the book, I'm like, oh, I had the almost breakup at this stage of life, the big breakup after that. So you can kind of see in that sense too of how everything builds on each other and eventually gets you to the type of relationship you want as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
My key takeaway is I actually think this is the perfect book for anybody who's single right now. Because so many times people are afraid to date and put themselves out there because of the fear of breaking up. We don't talk about breakups because we're fearful of the heartbreak. But if we have an almost academic approach to breakups and know that there are so many different ways to come out of every type of breakup, we have a game plan now. So now we don't need to be fearful because we know what's on the other side. There's now a game plan for each type of heartbreak you may experience. So I would highly actually recommend, it sounds weird if you're single and you're reading a book about breakups, but there is something really nice about removing the fear of finding out someone's not right for you. And then where do you go from there? I do want to warn anybody who gets your book, though, if you are partner up, you may just want to warn them before you read the book or like pick up the book, because I had your galley on my coffee table and my partner came in. He's like, breakup on purpose.
He's like, something wrong?
He's like, do you want to tell me something? Do you want to have a conversation?
Yeah. The title's a little misleading. I totally sold that as an author, which is the On Purpose franchise. But yeah, breakup on purpose doesn't mean to break up on purpose. It means break up kind of with purpose and reflecting on your breakup. It doesn't mean just to destroy relationships. That's not what the book's about. So yeah, thank you so much, guys.
This was such a good conversation. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, John. And where can we find out more information about you and your books?
If you go to singleonpurpose.life, I have built a brand new community for people who are trying to connect to themselves first. So it's like-minded singles and just tons of workshops. And I'm in there doing 2 lives a week. So yeah, go to there. And then in the show notes, we'll put a discounted link for you.
Awesome. And then books, I assume you can get anywhere?
Books wide, anywhere. Yep.
Awesome. Well, definitely pick up Breakup on Purpose. It was a great book.
Thank you.
We'll link everything in our show notes. And thank you again for being on our show. Last but not least, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable.